Have you ever found yourself in a slump where even the most simple of tasks feels unachievable? Perhaps you're unable to get out of bed, or there's a pile of laundry, or there's a pile of washing in the sink, and you know it needs to be done, but you're not quite managing to be able to muster the energy, the enthusiasm, or the motivation to do it. It might be that you've got an assignment due at school or at college, or you've got a project at work. And again, you know this work needs to be done, but for whatever reason, you can't start the task. I'm confident this video is going to make you feel better about those episodes, not only because it'll explain the real psychological response that's causing these moments, but also I'll offer you a strategy to help you cope with it. So if you're in a slump right now, or the next time you find yourself in a slump, you'll have the resource to be able to fix it. My name is Alex, and I'm on a mission to stop anxiety from ruining lives. And when you watch or engage with these videos, it pushes to a larger audience and more people are able to be helped by the content. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. Now let's get on with the video. And before we move to the strategy, I think it's really important to understand what's happening when you're in that slump of inactivity. When we find ourselves in these deep moments of inaction, it can be because our brain has mistakenly put us into something called the freeze response. And whilst this should only really kick in during life-threatening moments when our brain thinks we're in mortal danger, it can often be mistaken, it being our brain, and it can be triggered when we're in moments of accumulated stress or accumulated grief or anxiety. For example, we might be so overwhelmed by housework or work responsibilities that our brain mistakes these feelings of anguish for life-threatening situations and triggers our freeze response. So it's a really natural thing to happen. It's just our brains are too finely tuned and are triggering at the wrong time. In order to make this really easy to digest, picture that your brain is divided into three sections. You've got your forebrain, your midbrain, and your hindbrain. So the forebrain is where our conscious decisions are made. It's where our communication and personality are processed. And it's also where our brain can access our prior knowledge and experience and make logical decisions about what to do next. The midbrain acts like an autopilot. So it's got the powers to alert us when it perceives danger. And the hindbrain controls much of what keeps us alive, such as our nervous system, vital organs. And this is crucial to note. Our midbrain and our hindbrain are automated and they can override what's happening in the logical thinking part of our brain up at the front. So let's jump into the midbrain, our autopilot system. And it works alongside our frontal lobe. It works alongside the conscious decisions, but it means that we don't have to constantly be scanning for threats because our nervous system, our brain is tuned to perceive them. And inside our midbrain, there's a thing called the amygdala. And essentially this is like our guard dog. So it's constantly scanning situations, making sure that we're going to keep ourselves safe. And if it perceives a danger, it will send signals. And these signals, the guard dog woofs, and we trigger our survival responses. And they might be something that you're familiar with already. And again, it's just important to recognize and remember that those survival responses coming from our autopilot can override our logical thinking, our rational thinking, and create like an automated response. And crucial to understand why you're in these moments of inactivity, of slump, is that our brain has a finite amount of resources. So if our guard dog, our amygdala, starts sounding an alert, our brain is going to redeploy as much resource as possible to the survival responses. This means it's draining power from our ability to make logical, informed decisions. So these survival responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Fight is that sense that we need to fight, we need to defend or attack when we're faced with that high stress danger. Flight is the need, the urge to run away from the situation. Freeze is that hyper alert, frozen, silent, still. And fawn is that urge to plead or to appease the danger. So I'm sure you recognize those survival responses from the way that you respond to certain trigger situations in your life. They're really natural responses. Sometimes they just kick in at the wrong time. And what's happening when we're in these moments of slump, when we're unable to just do the basic things, is we're in that freeze mode. Our brain has been tricked and we've been put into a freeze survival response. You might associate that with the idea of the deer in the headlights or the rabbit in the headlights, frozen. And in fact, saying this out loud, you might recognize a moment in your life where you've been faced with a genuine danger and you froze up and you were unable to communicate, you were unable to do the things and the normal functions that you would do. And that's because the resources from your rational brain got drained and redeployed to your survival response, which in that case was freeze. So whilst we want these responses because they can keep us alive in bad situations, our brains are sometimes tuned a little bit poorly. And it means that when we're faced with that accumulated stress or grief or trauma, anxiety, whatever it may be, we can trigger survival responses. And as stated, when we are in survival mode, we're not able to communicate, we shut down, perhaps we're almost non-verbal at some times. And it's because our brain won't allow us to, because it thinks we're in danger. It doesn't want to expend energy on superfluous function. All it wants to do is keep us alive. Imagine that in order to turn the lights on in your bathroom, you had to turn the lights off in your kitchen. That's essentially what's happening. So how can we undo the freeze response if we find ourselves in that slump, or perhaps a loved one is in that slump? Quite simply, we need to send signals to our midbrain that we're safe. And the easiest way to do this is to fire dopamine at it. And the technique is you might be a bit cynical about this, but this strategy is the most straightforward thing that you can start to do. We associate dopamine with reward. So one of the things that we can do is celebrate small steps. And any progress that you make should be met with the same enthusiasm as if you've just won an Olympic medal. So let's imagine our bedroom's in a terrible state. There's dishes piled up, there's wrappers everywhere, the clothes are all over the floor. I've not made the bed in 2 weeks. And we're in that moment where we know something needs to change, but our brain won't allow us to. Our brain's in survival mode, so it can't allow you to use energy on anything other than surviving. Our brain isn't going to let us tidy the entire room straight away. Any small step is like a genuinely wonderful thing. So we're going to pick up a couple of clothes off the floor and put them in the laundry basket. And we'll celebrate massively, because we've got to remember our brain is actively trying to stop us from doing these sorts of things. So our win is a win. We're going to celebrate, and that reward that we give to ourselves is going to ping tiny bits of dopamine into our nervous system. Think about how you might communicate with a toddler who's learning a skill. They might be doing something that's like super basic to you, such as holding a pencil correctly, standing up, muttering their first words, or getting the shape in the right hole on one of those wooden toys. You're going to over-celebrate that achievement. And that's the way that you need to talk to yourself. Because the more dopamine we can fire into our nervous system, the more our amygdala is going to go, why am I feeling reward chemicals? If I'm feeling reward chemicals, maybe there isn't a lion chasing me. Maybe there isn't a monster under the bed. Maybe there isn't something terrible about to happen to me, because I shouldn't be feeling reward if I'm in peril. Remember, what we're trying to do is get our frontal lobe, that rational thinking part of our brain, back online. And the only way we can get to do that is allowing our brain to redeploy power there. And it won't do that until it feels safe. So steady celebration of those small steps, those small victories, will fire the dopamine that allows our frontal lobe to switch back on and our rational brain to start taking over again. Did this scenario sound familiar to you? I'd love to know if you've tried this technique or if you're willing to try it now. I want to know what the responses are. Positive talk to ourselves is never unhealthy. I'll see you in the next video.